big welcome to today's webinar. This is actually the seventh webinar in our Language Teaching Takeoff webinar series, where we are exploring how to make the most of the powerful tools available in the TeacherMatic Language Teaching Edition. My name is Giada, and I worked in the language education sector for the past 7 years. I was actually an education leader for the past 1-2 years. And I'm now part of the Avalanche team, where we are focusing on creating tools that really support teachers and make a difference in the classroom. And I'm pleased to introduce you to today's host, Nik Peachey. Nik is an award-winning educator, author, and edtech consultant with more than 30 years of experience in language education, and is especially passionate about using new technology, including AI, to support teachers and learners. And today, the focus of the webinar is going to be how the TeacherMatic AI generators are also designed to support not just teachers, but leaders and administration, and can really empower every role in the language education institutions. And before we begin, just a few practical notes. You're welcome to submit all the questions that you have using the chat function that you can find below. And we'll aim to address as many questions as possible towards the end of the session. Also note that the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared via email the week after the event. And with that, let's just get started. Nik, over to you to begin the session, and thank you again for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming along. I'll just share my screen, if I can find the right one to share. Okay, it's that one, I believe. Hopefully you can see that. I'll just have to do a little bit of rearranging. Okay, and hopefully you can still see it. One thing I'd like you to do while I'm just fiddling around with my settings, if you could just type into chat whether you've been to one of these sessions before or whether this is your first time. So a yes or a no would be fine there. Yes if you've been before, no if it's your first time. Okay. Great, good. Okay, a few yeses, lots of no's. Okay, that's always great to know. Okay. Let me just switch screens. So this session is on looking at going beyond the classroom and empowering every role in language education. So, you know, there'll be a real focus here on useful generators or tools for people who are working as directors of studies, ADOSs, or in some kind of leadership role, or also if you want to work towards that kind of leadership role too. If you're a lowly teacher, and it's still worth staying with us and seeing how things work, because there are lots of other things that are there and available for you. So do sort of hang in there and see what can be done. So in this session, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to TeacherMatic and what it does and its generators, and then we'll look at some of the roles and how you can sort the generators into different roles so you can find ones that are more specific to you. And then we'll look at 4 specific generators. So event and project planning, how they can help you with that, how they can help you draft strategies. So both of these are still useful for teachers as well. Policy statements. And the last one, which I find really interesting, is the insight analysis. So, I mean, it sounds like a really boring thing, insight analysis and looking at loads of data, but it is really useful. And so it's worth hanging into the webinar for that one. Okay, so just to be clear, the TeacherMatic has different versions, and if you're working in a language school, when you do log in or when you want to try out the free version of the platform, do look for this sign up here. I've got a little red arrow pointing to it, and that's the language teaching version. So if you go for that version, it has generators that are specifically designed to help language teachers and people working in the language teaching profession. Okay, so try that one. So This is what the TeacherMatic platform looks like, and it has 40 plus generators. What you see here is these kind of squares. Each one of them is what's called a generator, and that's a pre-programmed AI prompt that's designed specifically for a purpose. If you've tried AI and you've been to ChatGPT or something like that, you'll know that you have to write your prompt. And if you're not very good at writing your prompt, you don't get very good results. And so that can be a bit of a struggle when you're first getting into using AI. And that's a kind of skill in itself. If you don't want to be bothered with that, learning that skill and fiddling with that and taking the time that it needs for that, then, you know, TeacherMatic is ideal for you because these generators, each one's been programmed by somebody who's an expert at AI, and it's been programmed to deliver specific results. It's been tested and it's monitored. So of course that gives you better results much more quickly. And especially if you're working across a school, it means that your teachers, if they're using it, are getting consistent results as well that they can save and share. So that's a bit about the TeacherMatic platform, and what we're going to have a look at today is, you know, how you can separate those generators and find ones that are specifically useful for you. So I'll go to the live site. So this is the live site. This is what it looks like. I can scroll up and down all the generators, and I can start to filter them. As you can see, if you're looking at the top right of the screen, there are all roles in which you have all of the generators, and there's lots and lots there, far more than the original 40 that we were looking at. Or you can filter the roles to teacher, so then you'd get the ones that are mainly interested for teachers, or marketing, ones that are specific for marketing, or you can go for leadership, which is what we're looking at today. There is another way to filter them. If you look at the left of the screen, there are ones that are specifically about checking quality, marketing, or administration, and that's a different way to filter them. What you'll see now when I'm in the leadership roles is, you know, you've got a little pink or red heart up the top there. And so I favorited these ones because they're the ones that I want to show you today. So again, that makes them easier to find. Another thing that's worth pointing out when you come here and try it yourself is there's a little eye which has generator information on it. So if you're wondering how each generator is used, then you can click there and you get some suggestions on how you can use it and how it can help. So those kind of things are generally really useful to help you if you don't remember what happens in these sessions. Okay, so I'll look at the project or event planning one first. And what you do to use them is you click them to open them, and then it gives you some fields so that you can personalize the information that they generate. Of course, you know, you don't want just a generic plan or generic feedback like you might get through ChatGPT. You want it to be something specific. So if you've got a project or an event that you need to plan, you just need to put in a descriptive title here for it. It could be anything from a school inspection, it could be a party, it could be a prize giving ceremony or a quiz or something like that, whatever it is you want to have a look at. I thought we'd have a look at a school inspection. I'm just going to copy paste that from here. It's one of the suggested ones in there. So if I go for a school inspection, you can also put in specific tasks and factors that you want to be included in this. Okay, so it might be that you want to have a peer review before your inspection or something like that. Whatever it is that you think is really essential for that forthcoming school inspection, and then you click on generate. Okay, so we're going to this, and this should generate your plan, your project plan for the school inspection. I always have my fingers crossed when this happens, and just in case nothing happens, but it always does. So, and here it is already, it's generated our plan. I'll make my screen a bit larger so you can see that a bit better, I hope. Just enlarge the screen a bit. So here's your school inspection project planner, detailed plan, and it's got the stages of the plan with bullet points for you there. Okay. And then it's got those broken down into a table. If there's something that, if you look at that and you think, well, that area is fine, but, there are some areas that I'm not so sure on. So, for example, if you wanted more detail about one of those areas, you can copy and paste it and say, so if I wanted more detail about parental communication, I can click that in there. And it will regenerate the plan and it will give me some more information about that. Similarly, it could do the same for any one of these. So now if we go to parental communications, you can see it's got much more detailed bullet points and much more detailed staging. It's got sort of 5 different areas there, whereas previously they've only had one kind of basics breakdown for each one. Okay. If you decide that's right for you and you want to export it, you can click to export it in any of these different formats. It can be a Word document or a PDF, or Google Drive might be useful for that. Or you could just save the results here and they'll be there when you want to come back to them. So basically that's, a tool for helping you plan any kind of events. It gives you that kind of breakdown. Okay. Okay, so the next one I'll look at is draft strategy. Hang on. Okay, draft strategy. And what I want to look at is a kind of strategy for let's have a look, how to use AI with students. So first of all, I can choose my type of institution. I'm going to let's go for vocational. You can add a bit more description. English language school, not spelled very well. And then you can select your role within it. So I'll say I'm Director of Studies. Title of description required. So what I'd like is a draft strategy to how to implement the use of AI. Implementing AI with students, and then I can generate that. I've missed the L out, but it still seems to understand it. Okay, and now I've got my kind of brief draft strategy. So familiarize staff with AI tools, integrate AI into the curriculum, ensure ethical use, promote collaboration and innovation, and evaluate and refine. And again, if I think that's not enough for me, it's got action steps to go with that. I could ask for extra sections to be added. For example, so if I want a strategy for monitoring how students and teachers use it, then I can get it to add something like that. Just wait a few minutes and see how it does. Okay, and it's got some suggestions for monitoring. So implement regular progress checks, use analytics, encourage students to keep reflective journals, conduct periodic process. So it's got a whole bunch of suggestions for that. So it's got my goals and my action steps. We could just change this to a different role. So let's change it to, let's say I'm the director or owner, and I'll regenerate that. I'll try and spell it correctly this time, implementing AI use with students and teachers. Regenerate it, and it should give you a more customized result for a school director. Okay. So now it's got curriculum integration as well, piloting programs, infrastructure and support, budget allocation, and all those kind of more backgroundy type of activities that someone who's a director might need to do. And again, you can save it, or you can ask it to refine it if you want to, and regenerate it and see what you get. So, useful tool there for drafting strategy, especially if you're new in any of those roles. I remember when I first kind of took over a director of studies role, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and having something to help me with strategy was really useful. The next one I want to show you is how to draft policy statements. Again, these can be really time consuming to create. I can remember recently I had to generate a policy statement about how I guaranteed that I wasn't using slave labor in any form within my business, and I didn't have any idea how to begin or what to include in that. So creating these sort of policies can be really kind of time consuming and confrontational for your mental health. And then, anyway, there's a few suggestions here, lots of suggestions for different ones. So let's go for equality, diversity, and inclusion, because that's something that's quite important at the moment. Well, it's quite important all the time, and then we can break down that into sort of different levels. Let's go for a gender equality policy, and then we can add our type of institution. And I'll go for training organization in this also. Optionally you've got an option to add extra guidance if you want to. And, if you have a document that you have to, you're obliged to adhere to, you can upload that document as well. So it will help you with that. Okay. And then you can choose how complicated it is. I'm going to go for 500 words at first so that it doesn't take too long to generate. And I'll click on generate and see how that goes. Okay, and it's generated sort of a first draft of my policy statement. And that's something that I really have to stress. It is a draft, and it's something that you should download and edit and make sure that you're compliant with any other documentation that you need to adhere to. But it's given you your basic outline. Again, this would probably be much better if I chose 2,000 words instead of 500. But this should give you the basic idea. So it's telling you about implementation, reporting and compliance, monitoring and review. Monitoring and review is always one of those things that you really need to be careful with, I think, because it's all okay having a policy that says you're going to do it, and then it sort of doesn't get done. So maybe this is one area where we'd like it to be refined. So I can ask for it to give more detail about how to monitor and review just by typing in my question. And hopefully it should add more detail to that process there. Okay, so there it is. It's giving me kind of quite good stages: gathering analysis data, reviewing feedback, monitoring reports, all those kinds of things. So as you can see, it's, and we can ask for any of these to be enlarged. And again, like I said, once you've generated your draft, you click on export, you can export it. It would be the best thing to export it as would be kind of Microsoft Word or Google Drive, because you want to be able to edit it, or you can just save it and come back to it later and review it again. Okay, so that's really a great time-saving tool for sort of policy statements of any sort. The last one I'm going to show you is the insight generator. And, this one looks the most boring, but for me, it's the most interesting. And basically, one of the things that I think is great that it can do is you can upload a spreadsheet of data and then get it to analyze it for you. You can basically ask it questions or something like that. I'll just demonstrate this for you quickly if I can find something to upload. I've got to upload my. Okay, I've got a CSV file here. It's a spreadsheet with some student information in it. Okay, and the first thing I do is just click on generate. I haven't asked it to do anything yet. It's just going to upload the information and create a summary of it. So what it's got is my summary analysis. It's telling me what's in there. And it gives me some suggestions for what I can do. So I could sort of just choose one of these and copy paste them in as a question: which student has the highest overall engagement level across the observed period? So, if I was a teacher, analyzing my students' results, these would be quite useful. But if, for example, I'll give you an example of something I used to have to do. I worked in an online school for a long while where we were delivering something like 2,000 lessons a month, and because it was all online, all of the student information, their interactions, who was teaching them, how many hours they attended, what activities they completed, this was all being tracked, which produced a huge amount of data, which I then had to go through and try to make sense of. And having something like this to just be able to ask questions would have been really helpful. One of the things I had to do was create student personas. So I wanted personas of different students who were being the most successful, who were being the least successful. So I could look at those and try and work out why some students were more successful than others. So I can say, can you create some student personas? So now I can just question it, ask it that question, and it will create my student personas for me and give me examples of which students fit those personas, which is really useful. So now I've got my student personas there. If I go back to the top, so there's the highly engaged high achiever, and there's an example of John, so I can go and find him if I want to. The inconsistent performer, so there's Maria, gives an example, and it tells me about her. The quiet achiever, struggling learner, sporadic participant, low attendance, high performer. So it's got these 9 different potential personas, and then I can go back into the data and find out, what's characteristic about those, and sort of find out what I can do about sort of trying to improve those as learners. The other thing I used to have to do was kind of track. If you're running an online school, some students are leaving more quickly than others. You have some students, even in a face-to-face school, who stay with you for years and years, and some who leave after 3 months. It's really useful to try and find out why, so that you can change those churning students to ones who stay regularly. So you can sort of dig into those things in the data and ask for, which students are churning and why are they churning. So those are some of the great things that you can do with those kind of data. And you can sort of, again, you can export or save it and come back to it. So something like this, I'd probably save it once the data's in there, come back to it whenever I think of something else that I want to analyze. Okay, so those are just sort of 4 of these. Those are just 4 of these leadership kind of generators. As you can see, there are lots more there, lots more useful ones. There's one for smart targets, creating smart targets, which is really useful. Also, that's a useful one for teachers as well, if you want to create your own smart targets. Things like creating your own improvement plan, or I like this, there's a self-assessment advisor, so you can assess yourself and see how you need to improve. So, lots of useful things there, and they're certainly worth coming back to. So those are some of the roles. We've looked at project event planning, we've looked at drafting strategy, we've looked at policy statements, and we've looked at insight generators. It's worth checking out the course. If you really have other questions and you want to find out more, there's a free TeacherMatic course, which is self-accessed. You can do it in your own time. There's a QR code link to it there, and it comes with certification, which, is also always good to have. Get an extra certificate can be really useful and sort of boost your status within your school a bit. And that will help you learn more about it and some of the potential and what it can do. So do try that. And before we
Exactly. And
run
this is
out of time,
a free resource, by the way. So definitely recommend it to join the course.
And our next session is going to be a panel discussion. Should be a really interesting one. And it's going to be looking at some of the ethical issues around using AI. Do come along to that next one. Again, it's only half an hour, so that
no,
one's
the
going to
next
be a
one is
longer one.
actually
We're
it's
gonna
a
do
longer
an hour
one.
next one. Good. Well,
Yeah.
and you'll be able
Yeah,
to hear someone else talking apart from me, which is good.
No, I think we wanted to do an hour just to give everybody a bit more time, and we have so much to discuss when talking about AI in language education. So that will be a very interesting discussion. And also, just going back to one of the questions that was asking about prices. We have the prices for individuals available on the website, but in case you're interested for your language institution, you want to know more, you want to book a free consultation with our sales team and have like a personalized walk through all the detailed information about prices for organizations, because they vary between like the size of the organization, of course. So just feel free to contact us and we will get back to you with all the information that are tailored to your institution. But thank you for coming along today. Thank you very much, Nik, for walking us through these very useful generators. I think it's been great. And we really hope to see you in the next one, especially considering that is this special episode with very interesting conversation around AI. And we really appreciate your time. So thank you very much and have a good day.